Greetings, boys, ghouls, and non-binary fools. I'm your host, Captain Myenstein, and I'm hunting down a group of teenagers just for being workers at a camp I don't want opened. But when I'm not doing that, I'm here at the Soundlayer reviewing horror movies. As we all know, the 1978 horror flick Halloween, which I feel like my channel has been about a lot recently, made a big splash in the horror world. It was the simple story of a seemingly unstoppable man killing babysitters on Halloween night, and that simple premise terrified audiences worldwide, leading to the creation of the slasher subgenre of horror. Slasher films are some of the most easy horror flicks to make. Good lighting, good camera, a knife, a mask, people, actors to kill, bam, an hour-long slasher flick summed up in one sentence. Due to Halloween's success, there were obviously a lot of copycat films that started being released 2 years later, like Terror Train, New Year's Evil, and the flick I'm talking about today, Friday the 13th. The film was directed by Sean S. Cunningham, a former porn director who worked with Wes Craven on his films. Wasn't expecting to get that piece of trivia researching this, but you learn something new every day. Cunningham's film was called Friday the 13th, taking inspiration from the urban legend that 13 is the unluckiest number, and believe it or not, the title was all he had. Eventually, the plot was figured out, but the flick started as an ad in Variety, hoping to attract buyers and see if the title was already copyrighted. Great approach to filmmaking. Speaking of the plot, there isn't a lot of one, which makes this probably one of my most easiest videos. All I have to do is make jokes about the movie. Well, this review can't be made it long, so never mind, I can't do that. The story of the film concerns a summer camp preparing to open, a group of teen counselors, and a mysterious killer picking them off one by one. Sounds like I just described 100 different horror flicks, huh? The problem with this flick isn't the story itself, nor is it about how bare bones it is. No, the problem lies in the fact that Friday the 13th has a lot of filler in it, scenes that do nothing to advance the story or build up atmosphere. For example, there's an infamous scene where a snake is killed in one of the cabins, and moving on to a small tangent, the snake was actually a pet of one of the crew members, and he didn't know it was going to actually be killed for the scene. Great way to treat your crew members' belongings. There are so many filler scenes that run minutes longer than they should in this film, I could probably spend the whole review talking about them. Later on in the flick, there's a scene where the characters play a game of strip Monopoly, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Monopoly is a long game, why add a stripping twist to it? Another example comes at the end of the film where Alice, our final girl portrayed by Adrienne King, attempts to hide from the killer and barricades herself in a cabin, which takes an agonizingly long 4 minutes. Then, adding salt to the wound, when someone pulls up in a truck, she has to take down the barricade, which takes another minute. Wow. That was a lot. So, moving on from that tangent, Friday the 13th does have a lot of filler. At times, I forgot I was watching a horror film. It's obvious that the writer, Victor Miller, was just killing time by not killing people, especially since the cast is so small and the film is only 90 minutes long.
You neglected to mention that downtown they call this place Camp Blood.
But despite all of that, the film has something to it that just seems cozy. It has a small warmness to it, an isolating feel, something that makes me want to watch it while drinking tea or coffee. It strangely doesn't give off the feeling of summertime. It's the perfect autumn movie. Regardless, Friday the 13th can still be pretty boring at times. Where the film shines, however, is in its kills, courtesy of legendary gore artist Tom Savini, who had previously worked with George Romero on Dawn of the Dead. The kills are brutal, but they're never really shown as they happen. We just see the gory aftermath. Not a bad thing, though. It's really something that what makes Friday the 13th a good movie isn't anything that the cast and crew do in the film, it's the work of things like the gore and the exceptional score by Harry Manfredini. The music is one of the most iconic aspects of the flick. One of the most famous pieces of horror music ever comes from this film, for example. It's a great piece of horror music because it not only sounds scary, but it's connected subtly to the motivation of the killer. The music gives the killer a presence when we see nothing but a hand, but man, the music makes the hand and button-up shirt terrifying. The music is also only heard when the killer is in the scene, so there's no cheesy jumpscare music like in other horror flicks. The music gives the film character when the actual characters don't do much charactering. It would be a lie if I said I could remember each of the characters' names. We learn next to nothing about the personality of the characters, or their backstories, or why they're working at the camp. Even the film's final girl, Alice, is bland. However, there is one character that has some merit. Crazy Ralph, which is a very apt name. He spends the entirety of his 2 scenes in the film attempting to warn the other characters of the dangers of Camp Crystal Lake, or Camp Blood as it's popularly known. All of the other townsfolk know and hate him.
Goody Camp Blood, ain't you? God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get!
And he's one of the most mysterious characters in the series, knowing nothing about him except that he has a wife, which I just realized watching this for the review, and that makes him one of the best characters in the series. I will say the character situation makes this film kinda sad though. They didn't deserve their deaths, they weren't responsible for Jason's death, they were just caught in the crossfires of the killer's revenge plan. Okay, so Friday the 13th is officially over 40 years old, but since it is kind of a mystery film, here is your spoiler warning. I'm going to talk about the identity of the killer, of course, which shouldn't really matter because the identity of the killer is one of the most well-known twists in horror history, but here I am. Skip this time code if you want to go to this film blind. The killer of Friday the 13th is revealed to be Mrs. Voorhees, a former cook for the camp who lost her son Jason in the 50s. This is what I meant when I said Friday the 13th is only kinda a mystery film. Mrs. Voorhees isn't seen at all before she's revealed as the killer. There could have been a nice Scooby-Doo element to the film, especially considering most slasher flicks are 90-minute Scooby-Doo episodes anyway. Alas, what a shame. So, since we now know who our killer is, how does Alice react to the situation? Well, by running and hiding, of course. It's not like she could probably take on this middle-aged woman who relied on surprise and ignorance for her murders. Mrs. Voorhees' motivation for killing is one of the most well-known. Her son, Jason. He drowned at Crystal Lake in the 50s due to negligent campers who were off doing the nasty while he was at the lake. I can see why they were doing it though, when all they can do is sing Kumbaya My Lord. If that was all I could do at a summer camp during the night, I would probably kill myself. Now you see that our first look at a horror legend is as a child with a huge head. Tom Savini, naturally, was also responsible for Jason as a hydrocephalic kid. Can't believe Victor Miller is credited as the creator of Jason, though. Heresy, I say. The late great Betsy Palmer, rest her beautiful soul, didn't take the film at all seriously. She just wanted to use her paycheck to buy a new car she wanted, but Betsy absolutely chewed her scenes. She gives Mrs. Voorhees a delusional edge to contrast with her maternal charm. Along with the gore effects, Betsy's the only other reason this film is really any good at all.
Oh, I couldn't let them open this place again. Could I?
She is shown as a mother who is racked with grief over her son's death.
Look what you did to him!
But she's gotta have been a psychopath already because she elaborately sets up and throws the dead bodies at Alice. I see where Jason got his theatrics from. She somehow hasn't dislocated a hip or anything. Betsy Palmer doesn't have a lot of screen time in the flick, but she makes up for it and then some. Her acting prowess is shown wonderfully with how quickly Mrs. Voorhees can go from peaceful and calm to insane and murderous in seconds. A sight to behold, truly. Betsy looked down on the series in years to come, but came around to it in her later years, seeing how much of an impact this series and her performance had on horror fans. Glad to know that she ultimately came around. The ending of Friday the 13th is a doozy. Not because a lot happens in it, but because it has one of the most memorable kills in horror history. Seeing Mrs. Voorhees get her head chopped off by Alice is insane. Those hairy hands can't believe it happened. Also, gotta applaud Alice for having the guts to kill Mrs. Voorhees. Friday the 13th is a classic film, but mostly because of the series it started. The film by itself leaves a little to be desired. The characters are bland, the film has a lot of filler, and the only time the movie gets really good is in the last 15 minutes. Still, this is a classic movie for a reason, and everyone should watch it, if only to see the films it spawned. Of course, this film is also responsible for kickstarting the slasher genre that Halloween arguably started. This film showed everyone that it's really easy to make a knockoff Halloween movie for cheap. This doesn't deter the fact that Tom Savini, Harry Manfredini, and Betsy Palmer all make this movie a great watch though. I give this film a moderate captain's gift. Wow, Kevin Bacon is in this movie. One of his first roles. Crazy.
You want to?
Fat chance you're 2 steps from Pacific Avenue in Skin City.
Oh.
If you like this video, like it, but if you loved it, make sure you subscribe to me, Captain Myenstein. Hit those very important subscribe and bell icons so you never miss when I upload new videos. If you want to keep in touch with me, make sure you follow my social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Captain Myenstein. I hope your nightmares are plentiful, and I hope to see you again for another episode of The Captain Myenstein Show.